How you guys doing? I'm Andy with Mighty Soldiers Trades, and today we have a special treat for you. We're on with Dan from TrendSpider, and Dan's going to be going over the TrendSpider platform with us and helping us understand the power of multi-timeframe analysis. I mean, Dan's got a ton. He'll go over that, and pretty much us, Mighty Soldiers Trades, we're a free YouTube-based community right now, and we're growing. Soon we'll be having a 2,000 margin versus $2,000 cash. We've already started to try that out a little bit, and now we're going to be bringing that live. We basically, we focus on realistic goals, not trying to double and triple our account every day and stuff, guys. And just primarily focusing on risk management, and we're about percentages, not P&L. And anything we can do to help you guys, we're here to provide value. And so basically, Dan, if you'd like to start and show us what you got.
Yeah, totally. So thanks everyone for being here today. My name's Dan Ushman. I'm one of the founding team members of TrendSpider. And I'm going to show you a little platform here, and hopefully you guys find something valuable in it. There's a lot of very powerful, unique, interesting tools in TrendSpider that are designed to kind of help you make smarter, more efficient trading decisions. And to help you become a better trader. And I'll also show you something new that's coming soon, which is our market scanner, which is something that we're launching in the next few days. So just really quick before I get going too far, I just want to make sure everybody can see my screen and can hear me all right. And just say something in chat if you can. Awesome, thank you. Okay, cool. So let's talk about technical analysis, right? We're all traders, so we use charts to try to use historical price movements, under the premise that price moves in patterns and that history repeats itself, to try to predict and guess, where price might go next, so that we can place bets, right, in the market that are a little bit more than gambling and are a little bit more of an educated guess. Joseph, if you can't hear us, just try refreshing. One thing, if you've been a technical trader for any amount of time, is you probably realize it's very subjective, right? There's a lot of room for error. There's a lot of room for mistakes. There's a lot of room for inconsistencies. So in building a new charting platform, we wanted to address some of these things. And the way we chose to do that was to kind of empower our users to use some of the same techniques and tools that hedge funds and prop shops and professional trading organizations use, and that is automation to deliver consistency and to deliver, to reduce errors and biases in analysis that ultimately lead to trading mistakes. So here's some cool stuff that the TrendSpider can do, kind of with that in mind, that is designed to help you make better trades, right? One way is by automating trendline analysis. So you can open up any chart, and there's a button at the top called Trends that you can turn on that will automatically analyze a chart and find relevant trend lines for it. This is customizable. There's a bunch of different ways that the trendline detection can work. There's a bunch of different, oops, wrong button. There's a bunch of different styles to how this can be set up, and you can even create your own custom trend detection rules by going into kind of advanced settings. What's cool about this is the underlying logic implies that there are thousands of potential trend lines in any given chart. So we start by trying to find them all, right? And you can see it kind of looks like a crazy wet mess. And then we filter these down using different formulas and algorithms that you can customize to try to find the most relevant analysis on a chart. And as you kind of peel back this onion, you can double click on lines that you like. So like, let's say you agree with these two lines. So that when you filter down all the way to the bottom, you can be left with a very clean, very simple analysis in just a few seconds, and there's no subjectivity to it. Every line was drawn using the same mathematical method, right? And the ones that are filtered down in the same way every time. This is powerful because it saves you time. It can act as a second set of eyes for your own discretionary analysis. You can draw your own stuff, of course, as well. You might draw something like this, and then you can augment it with the automation to try to find whatever trends you might have missed, right? And this gives you a way to get to a quick, complete trendline analysis in just a few seconds, right? Without having to do a whole lot of work. And what's neat is when you have trends turned on, as you flip through a watch list, right? You'll see that it'll automatically analyze the chart. Now, this is a great example. I haven't looked at this chart in this account for a long time because I wanted to use this as an example. You can see that the trend lines here were drawn in the past, right? And you can actually see when by looking at this vertical line here. Trend analysis in TrendSpider is exactly like it would be for your own, account if you're drawing these lines yourselves. They wouldn't redraw it every time you pulled up a chart. Neither will TrendSpider. Instead, it'll lock it at a point in time, and you can tell it to refresh that analysis if you want. When you do that, it'll reanalyze the chart and find new possible trend lines that might exist on it now, right? And the whole premise here is to let you kind of lock it in place. If you're in a trade, you wouldn't want it to change. You can then quickly go through it, lock anything that you might be interested in. I'm just locking some random things. Flip off trends. That didn't work out too well. And have a clean analysis on your chart in just a few seconds.
How could you quickly draw a trend line if it's not there?
So if it's not there, you can draw it super quick. You can either tell the system to reanalyze it and try to find it for you, or you can use the drawing tools on the left side and just draw your own, right?
Is there also a hotkey for that?
Yes. Yeah. On a Mac, it's Option R. If you hover your mouse, or if you go to the hotkey guide, it'll give you a list of all of these.
Awesome.
Right. So every drawing tool has a hotkey. Once you memorize them, you don't actually use the buttons. That's why you never see me use the toolbar here. But there are. So another cool thing about this is it works in all time frames. So we've been playing on the daily chart here, but let's flip down to the 65-minute chart or the 15-minute chart. You notice every chart I pull up has trend lines detected on it. And I can change the style of this, right? So like right now I have it respecting gaps. That means it won't draw lines across a gap. I can turn that to off, and it'll start to analyze across gaps, and it'll start to ignore them a little bit, right? And you can also, of course, choose a different style because some of these styles are noisier than others. If there's extra lines you don't like, you can hold Shift on them and just click on them, and they go away, right? You can get something pretty quick here that's relevant. Now, being able to find trend lines is one thing, right? Being able to put them to work and use them is a whole other thing. So regardless of where the line came from, you might use the automated recognition. You may choose to do it yourself and draw your own lines. Wherever the lines that you're trading on happen to be from, or even if they're indicator lines, right? They're not trend lines. You need a way to use them in trading, right? Otherwise, it's just stuff on your chart, and it's a distraction. So one way that we do that is with our alerting system, and this is really cool. All you do is you right-click on the line that you want to monitor. And let's say your strategy here is, if AXB ever pulls back close to this line, you might want to go long, right? You can tell the system to monitor this line for you, and you can monitor for a defined event. So a breakthrough, a touch, or a bounce. You can then configure a buffer zone around it, so you can get alerted as price gets close to it, but doesn't actually touch it just yet. And you can trigger this off a lower time period. So this is a 15-minute trend line, but we're going to get alerted when a 5-minute candle breaks through, touches, or bounces within 66 cents of that line. You can then have the system watch this for a period of time. You can have it trigger more than one time if you want to, and you can create the alert and have it watch this for you. This is really cool when you start to use multiple time frames, right? So, for example, we can turn on like trend lines and MTFA. We're on a 1-hour chart here, and we can pull in trend lines from the daily time frame onto this chart, right? And we know that long-term trends tend to impact short-term price action, right? It tends to respect them. So we can quickly pull up the long-term trends on a chart like this, clean up some of the noise, and we can create alerts on those as well. This is a daily trend line. I'm on the 1-hour chart, and I'm going to get an alert when price on the 15-minute, chart comes near it. Right, and that's one of the really powerful things about this is the ability to mix and match time periods, because long-term trends do impact short-term trade opportunities, and it's very likely that price on the shorter time frames will at least react in some way to a long-term trend that's in the way there. So, and that's one way that you can do this. You can also do that same type of thing with indicators. So, let's say you want to add call it a 100 period EMA to your chart, right? That's this yellow line here. Price has just bounced off it. So maybe you want to say if price ever gets above this EMA, I want to get an alert. So you can right click on it, create an alert. You can control how close price can get. Since I'm doing a breakthrough alert, I'm going to make this 0. And then you can have this go off on a smaller time period. So I can now watch this EMA, for as long as I want to from the 1 hour chart. And that makes it a 100-hour EMA for a 10-minute candle to close above it, right? And then I'll get an alert.
Dan, one of the things that really excites me about this is that most scans you can only see the numbers. You can't see you can actually see the chart. You see what's going on and what you're getting your alert from right here, and that I really like that about TrendSpider.
Definitely, you'll get a on-screen marker wherever an alert goes off to, so you can visually create your alerts. And this is actually just one type of alert we have. We have a whole other type of alert that's a little bit more complex, called a multi-factor alert. But you can visually create those as well. And then you can outsource the staring at the charts to a computer in the cloud. And I mean, I've traded since 2008, right? I consider myself, I don't think I'm the best trader in the world, but I think I'm experienced, and, I've got a lot of losses under my belt, and I still make a ton of mistakes because I get distracted, because I'm not paying attention, because my phone rings, for a bunch of reasons. So being able to say, hey, computer, watch this chart for me, let me know when this happens, otherwise I don't need to sit there and watch it all day, is, enabler of being able to trade in the first place, right? Otherwise it'd just be too difficult. So I think it's, I think it'd be pretty useful. Let me show you guys a few other really cool things. You can obviously create alerts on trend lines. I'm not sure if anyone here is familiar with anchored VWAP, but it's a really cool indicator. Anchored VWAP is an indicator you anchor to a specific point in time. So you do this by right-clicking on a candle and going to anchor the VWAP there. And you'll
That's another thing, just how easy that is. And I had the anchored VWAP at TradeStation, and it's just so much easier to just pull up TrendSpider and be able to basically place that anywhere you want. And like you said, just zoom into the chart. If you have a VWAP or some other moving average there, just zoom in and you'll be able to get that real easy.
Yep. So what's really cool about this, by the way, is when you anchor one, right, it becomes visible on your chart. So you can, stack the anchors and try to find the most relevant one right now. Right. But when you find that VWAP that you want to watch, like maybe on Google here, you want to watch the most recent one, right? You can then create an alert on it. Right, so this VWAP becomes actionable, and you can say, okay, let me know when price gets close to this level, right? That seems like an important level, right? And you can set this alert way out there so that, as price pulls back, you get notified each time, and you don't have to sit there and stare at the chart. There's also another anchored tool that we're big fans of. Andy and I were talking about this before we hopped on here, and that's anchored volume by price.
This is a game changer for me.
Yeah, this is super cool. Jake, one of my partners here, he only trades with this. He has nothing on his charts anymore. He used to be a big indicator guy, and now he just uses this, which
I understand that. I mean, I always had just the price action, and now being able to see it as volume as a function of price as well as a function of time, that is definitely a game changer for us over here.
Yeah, I think it's crazy. And it's amazing when you pick the right anchor points. Brian Shannon, who invented anchored VWAP, would say anchor from major directional changes or gaps or things like that. But you'll notice that when you anchor it and put the anchored volume by price at the same place, I need to add that. Sorry. Oops.
Can we make a default color where it would be whatever color we choose, or is it always going to come up as the color that the default color?
I wish we could. Right now you can't. That's something I've asked for.
Right.
Right. For some reason, the anchored VWAPs are always blue until you change them.
It's fine. Just that way you know what it is.
You'll notice when you put the anchored VWAP and the anchored volume by price at the same point, the VWAP and this yellow line, which is the volume by price, or the VWAP from the let me just change that. Not purple though. Red. those are going to be at the same level, right? And that's because they're the same calculation, right? This blue line is your VWAP as it progressed through time. And this red line is the VWAP right now, but also measured from the same point in time. So it would naturally make sense that they would come together. So I wouldn't think that's anything special. Sometimes people are like, oh, that's really cool, but that's just the math and where it's supposed to be. But it's always interesting because then you don't have to anchor. You don't need both of these if you're looking for that, right? Like the anchored volume by price will give you the same data as also anchoring a VWAP at that same point. And it also means that you can kind of lock it in, right, and see how it's different too, right? Like if you move up to the next low, right, you can see how this point of control keeps moving up. Okay, so sorry, a little digression into anchored indicator happy land there. These are some of my favorite indicators, which is why I always spend a lot of time talking about them. Should I go into raindrops a little bit?
Yeah, I was actually wondering how what you have to say about using raindrops with the volume profile as the anchor VWAP.
Yeah, totally. So let me give you a little primer on what raindrops are. If you go to TrendSpider.com/raindrops, I suggest everybody do this. There's a white paper that explains exactly how they work. There's no hocus pocus magic bullshit in these. It's simple math, and we go into a lot of detail into how we construct them, so that everybody knows what they're looking at, because this is something pretty new. You can only find this in TrendSpider, and what it is a volume adjusted price bar. We'll make it a little bit easier to see there by making it a little brighter. And what you have here is a daily Apple chart on the raindrop mode. And that means that each one of these bars represents one full day, just like on a candle, right? It's the same thing. And just like on a candle, they have a high and a low. Those are the same points as a candle would have. Where they start to differ is in their shape and what the dashes mean. The dash on the left side represents a volume-weighted average price for the first half of the day. On a daily chart, that means 3¼ hours of trading activity. And the same thing on the right. The dash on the right side is the volume-weighted average price for the second half of the day, the second 3¼ hours of the trading session, right? The dot in the middle is the overall VWAP for the whole period. The color is determined based on the position of these, right? So if the second half is lower than the first half, it's red. If reverse, it's green. And if they're at the same level, they're blue. We'll talk about the blue ones in a minute. And their shape, the kind of histograms on either side are the volume profile for that half of the period. So you can see how volume shifted and what the exact price levels, where the volume actually was during the actual trading session, right? Which is really interesting information. You can't really get any other way. On something like Apple, you're going to see these blue ones less frequently than on something that's less liquid. Overall, blue raindrops, we call them blue dojis, represent just 4% of all raindrops generated. And these are blue because the volume-weighted average price was at the same price level throughout the trading session. That means it can't be red or green. It makes them blue. And we see these often before there's a period of heavy volatility. We don't consider them to be directional in nature. But if you see a bunch of these forming, and you have some other reason to believe that direction might change, they could be an interesting thing to pay attention to. And if you zoom out on Apple here, you can see that, over here, right, at this top here, you had numerous blue ones form, kind of clustered together. Then at this bottom here, you had a couple of these form, and you have a couple more form at the tops here. We're not suggesting that these are always going to be this clean, right? Because they're not. You see them in the continuation on this massive rally as well. But if you have other reasons to believe there might be a directional change, the presence of blue dojis in that area could be something that's really interesting and worth paying attention to. And that's simply because how difficult they are to form, especially in a very liquid asset like Apple. There are millions of trades that take place a day at all different prices. For the volume-weighted averages of those to be the same the first and second half of the period is a pretty difficult thing for the market to accomplish, and it shows real indecision. So if you're a doji trader, these are something to definitely pay attention to. In terms of anchoring from these, We do suggest experimenting with anchoring them from recent blue dojis. That's one way that we found them to be interesting. And you can do the same thing with price. It's the most recent point of heavy indecision. So you can see since that point, how's volume been distributed, which, might give you some clues. And I think the most recent one was here. So we can see kind of how this looks here. So I'm a big fan of these. One thing to keep in mind with raindrops is they will affect every indicator on your screen. So if you have moving averages, if you have Bollinger Bands or an RSI or something like that going, the raindrops will change how those are calculated. They won't use a close price anymore because the raindrop doesn't have a close price. Instead, they're going to use a volume-weighted average price.
So would it be that you're mainly looking for bullish, bearish sentiment on the, like on that last candle right here on Apple? You can tell at the top the volume was higher, and it obviously, volume came down near the bottom, showing that this is definitely a bearish situation with the VWAP at the same situation.
Yeah, I mean, so like I'm a big believer, like personally, in needing a lot of different signals pointing in the same direction for me to, try to interpret it at all, right? So like for me, that would be one signal is, look, there was a pretty wide range of trading activity, and the higher prices were all in the beginning of the day, and as the day progressed, right, price became lower and lower, and volume moved with it. There was no volume, above the average VWAP in the first half of the day, all in the second half, right? No Apple trades took place over 321 here in the second half of the day at all. Right, so that's one thing that's telling. The other thing is, look, do I have some other reason to think that direction might change here, right? And I might not. I may, still feel pretty bullish about it because it's holding this moving average, and maybe I have a trend line there, right? So like I would want to have some mixture of signals. But I mean, that's definitely what this raindrop is telling me. Is today there was definitely a sentiment change, right? You can see in the past, the first one of these was followed by a second one, and then price recovered, right? And you can kind of look back and see, is there a pattern on this one? On Apple in particular, it's always interesting when you see raindrops, blue ones clustering. Like I pointed out earlier, but there's a whole bunch that clustered up here. Huge sell-off. Two that clustered down here right by each other. Big rally. There was one along the way, but then two right at the same level, the next sell-off. So if you're having like a very volatile market, seeing those, at support, at resistance levels could be interesting. And, combining it with other things like maybe automated trend lines, like maybe there's what's going on here?
Do you use the point of control, the areas with the highest amount of volume? How do you see those in regards to support and resistance?
I mean, I think it's an important thing to pay attention to. Markets are all about supply and demand, and volume kind of helps you measure where that supply and demand was.
Right.
The point of control can be an important support or resistance level. It can be an important price target. But again, like for me, if I'm trading, I want to see, multiple signals kind of pointing the same way.
Right. And you can use that in your back testing and your alerts as well, that point of control?
Yes, I believe you can. And you can also, because some people don't like to have these on your screen, you can just throw a horizontal line, at it and just create an alert on that. And then if you want to get this off your screen, you still have an alert at that level.
That's awesome.
Right. So, and, like using these things together, right, is, what I generally suggest is like there's a lot of different ways to look at the market, try to, get a sense for a variety of them by using different tools to, give you different perspectives. And like don't let, it's weird for a seller of automation software to say this, but don't, like try to automate too much, right? Like trading is still about discretion, right? And TrendSpider isn't intended to like do everything for you and tell you what to do. It's meant to help you make better discretionary decisions, right? So, I mean, be cognizant of that as you use tools like this. There's a lot of people out there who are like, here's an alert system, will give you an up, down, buy, sell, signal, and just follow it blindly. And there's no such thing as that in the markets. Take it from somebody who's got a lot of resources in the algorithmic analysis world, right? It's just nobody's that good. It's all about having a system and being disciplined, and using tools to kind of help you, help you be more efficient and more disciplined about it. Let me show you a few other things I kind of forgot to cover earlier. We have a visualization called heat maps. Heat maps try to approximate potential support and resistance areas, right? And there's actually a number of different ways they work. They go off your trend settings, so you can refresh them, and you can use them on different types of charts. And they try to detect areas where if price were to reach them, they would struggle to break through, right? And it highlights them in red that fades as time passes. There's an article on our blog that explains exactly how these work. It's pretty interesting. Again, there's no magic to it. It's simple math, but a pretty powerful way to detect support and resistance that a lot of people kind of miss in the form of a zone, not like a fixed level. There's also a couple other heat maps. There's one that does depth. Depth tries to look at where trend lines might exist in the way of price movement and give you some idea as to what the path of least resistance might be, right? And it's not always right. Actually, here's a great example on Boeing of it being wrong. The heat map would suggest that, price would have an easier path going up here. That's obviously not what happened on Boeing. Price went into the red. But it is a good second checker, right? A good way to try to get a sense for where price might go next. And you can see in the past how effective it's been. None of this is backdrawn, so you can see how effective it would have been in the past, right? And I mean, on CVX here, it looks like the path of least resistance is down. The other cool thing is all this stuff works on different time frames. So as you flip through time frames, right, any analysis tools that you have on will also flip on here. Right?
Will the multiple time frame analysis work with these heat maps?
No, heat maps do not support MTFA, right? So, and actually, they're a very peculiar thing. They don't support logarithmic scales either. You have to be on a regular scale to use a heat map. The minute you turn on log, the heat map's going to die on you. But they're interesting. We have plans to add more of these, right? Because they actually have proven to be pretty interesting. We have pattern recognition. So the system can identify over 150 different candlestick formations, going from 1 to 9 different candles in a formation. They are both art definitions and definitions from websites on the internet, including the pattern site, which is a very popular site for these. And just note, there's a little docs link next to all of these. You can click that, and it'll take you to the page where the definition for that pattern came from. And you can see exactly how that pattern is defined from the original author of that pattern. Some of these are TrendSpider patterns, and others are from third parties, right? But the docs links will take you to the appropriate place regardless. This is a TrendSpider pattern. And when you select these and click apply, the system will simply highlight them on your chart. So in a split second, you don't have to squint and say, hey, is that a valid hammer or not? The software is going to automatically recognize it with mathematical precision, which is a pretty cool thing if you're a discretionary trader, because it saves you a lot of time. You can quickly flip it off as well. So you can turn it on, turn it off, just get a sense for which are there, so it doesn't clutter up your chart. Sorry, you're going to say something?
Something that you don't have at the moment, but I'm wondering it might be easy for you guys to implement. Would you be able to give the multiple time frame analysis where I could have an indicator from a lower time frame that you don't even provide?
You can have one from a bigger time frame only. The math doesn't work the other way.
Okay.
We tried. It just how do you even take a 10-minute indicator and extrapolate out onto a daily chart? It's going to be very zigzaggy. But it works really nice in reverse. Putting the daily. This is one of my favorite setups is the daily moving averages on the 65-minute chart. Right, these aren't actually the moving averages I use, but it's really interesting seeing how long-term indicators are respected by short-term price, and how violent the breaks of them can be. right? And you're also getting those cross signals here. I mean, this was a great long, on this daily, what is that? A daily 10 EMA crossing the daily 100 EMA, right? Which most people who don't go up to the daily chart would miss because they're too focused on their lower time frames and they're missing the long-term trends. Right, and you can just flip on and get the long-term trend lines here, and see what a nasty short situation while Disney's in here, right? And by the way, it's just worth showing this. While we've got trend lines up, these dashed lines at the top there are the same as these lines down here. So it's the Disney chart analysis as of September 30th. We refresh these, they're both going to refresh. The colors are how you know they're the same chart. And you can see what the system picks up here is a little bit more relevant, to Disney's price movement today, which is actually a lot better there. And still a nasty breakdown. I wouldn't be surprised if we see Disney pull back a little bit more closer to this bottom trend line, and then we'll see maybe there's a little gap here too. Anyway.
Do you have any opinion on the SPY today with where it stopped its pullback, where it looks like it? I mean, to me, it looks like it could literally turn around and beast back up. I've been bearish, kind of thinking that it should have pulled back long ago, but obviously wrong on that.
I mean, I always like to look at the perspective personally. I mean, we have a 17% roughly move up in 3 months, and there's been one, major, maybe two, call it pullbacks along the way. I mean, I don't know. I would wait and see. One thing I have noticed, and this has happened on SPY for a long, long time, so I don't put a whole lot of weight on it. But, we have had divergent highs, right? I don't know if you're a big divergence trader, but this is Fisher Transform, but it could be RSI or MACD. It doesn't actually matter. They all do the same thing right now. But you've got higher highs on your price action. You've got lower highs on your momentum oscillators, right? Those are divergent highs. So, maybe this is some of that divergence playing out a little bit. Who knows? This thing, I've learned to not be bearish until there's a really compelling reason to be bearish with these indices, because this market, every single time it pulls back, it then takes off, right?
Honestly, I'm right there with you. Basically, the way that I usually try to indicate whether we're going to have a bearish, SPY or, market overall is just looking at the overall, big movers and just the big stocks within the S&P 500. And if you see weakness overall, in just majority of the names, then it's likely that we're probably going to have a problem. And that's exactly what happened the last two really big, huge pullbacks when we nearly went into bear market territory.
Yeah, I mean, look at the parabola here. Get rid of this line here. I mean, oops. That's a really sharp kind of accelerating, these types of moves never last. So at some point, we're going to have a pullback, likely to somewhere around this trend line area. And I don't know when that'll be. That could be, a year and a half from now, and this trend line is at 400, right? Who knows? But at some point we'll have a sharp pullback, and that's when the real test begins. Do these levels hold, right?
I can tell you one of the things that I really love about TrendSpider that I just found out is that you can click on and off the lower indicators quite easily.
Yes, you definitely can do that.
And you had shared with me to use the volume lower so I could see the volume when I had collapsed the list there as well.
Yes, yeah, volume lower. Actually, I usually use that too. I'm not sure why I don't have it. I prefer volume lower to the volume on your chart.
Will you be adding dollar change as well as percent change to the watch list?
At some point, yes. But there's some really cool stuff about the watch list that is changing soon. Like this is not the version that customers are using right now. This is the version that's coming out in a few days that I'm using here. And one of the things that changes in it is the whole watch list thing. So they get a lot better, even though you can't customize the fields in them yet. But let me show you that. Actually, let me show you the scanner first, right? Because there's the strategy tester, the multi-factor alerts, and the scanner I haven't even touched on. I'll start with the back tester, if you don't mind.
Oh, absolutely.
Do you do much back testing?
We're really,
having done some, but do you do much regularly?
we're really excited about the scanner, but as far as back testing, I told you that basically just I wasn't really happy with the back testing that we were using in the past, and it didn't really. I mean, as it could give you an idea, it wasn't what I had hoped it would be. But I understand what you were telling me earlier. Just you got to take it with a grain of salt, and it's just you know what I mean.
Yep. So backtesting is really cool in TrendSpider. This is the ability to test buy-sell conditions against historical market data. So basically, what you see here is the backtester open. You get to it by clicking the backtest or strategy tester. Excuse me. And you click strategy tester at the top to open the panel at the bottom. And then you can define your buy and sell rules. So here I've got one set of rules that is Bollinger Band, Keltner channel squeeze. That's when they, I think the Keltner channel is moved within the Bollinger Band or the other way around, right? And then a squeeze off is when the squeeze reverses, right? And this is not like a legit strategy that anybody should trade. I'm going to just put it out there. I'm just showing it to you because it's a simple one. But what's cool about it is you can define it here very easily with a visual interface without having to write any code. Most backtesting tools require you to write some code. You can then tell it what chart to test it on, call it the 1 hour chart, generic candles, and how far back to look, 4,000 candles, and you can click test. The system will then go back 4,000 candles, in this case it's 2 years of data, and calculate how this strategy would have performed. You can see the high-level statistics of the strategy here. So, how far back we went. You can go back further if you need to. How many trades took place. You can see how the price action reacted over time, the distribution of your winners and losers and their proportional size. And you can even compare it to like buy and hold and other strategies. For example, this black line is the buy and hold results of buying and holding SPY this whole time. And this blue is your buy and sell strategy. Right. So obviously buy and hold is a much better strategy with this asset than what you're testing here. You can click positions here to highlight in dark black on the top chart the portions of SPY's price action that you were in the trade for. So you can see that you did capture a lot of decent moves. There were a lot of junky moves that you were a part of as well. The other chart gives you your price behavior distribution. So you can see how many positions were open over how many candles, that's your bottom axis here, and the return and the max drawdown and max gain of open positions as time progressed based on how many candles were open or positions were open at that time. And you can even click see on chart to plot the buy and sell activity on the chart itself. So you can go back in time and say, okay, I need to adjust this strategy. I want to refine these conditions. I want to play with this. And through the process of trial and error, you can develop trading strategies that work for you by, testing different conditions and exploring them. When you find something you like here, you can click this alert me next time it happens. And this will create a multi-factor alert that can look for these technical conditions you were testing and let you know the next time those happen on a chart. And it's worth noting these multi-factor alerts are incredibly flexible and powerful. For example, I'm going to load a different example here. But for example, you can mix multiple time frames together. This one looks for RSI to be overbought on the 5-minute, 1 hour, and daily chart. And then it looks for a particular candle, any of these, to form on the 30-minute chart. You can mix and match any technical conditions you can dream up. You can combine them. For example, I'm going to make one right now where the 10-minute at EMA 100 has to cross up through the 45-minute EMA 10. It doesn't really matter. Just as an example, that's probably not a logical condition. But the point is you can create conditions that will watch for anything you can dream of. And that's really, really cool. The last thing you can do using that type of conditional thing, besides creating alerts and besides backtesting strategies, is you can scan the market. So this is new. This scanner is not released yet. You're getting a preview here that not many people have really seen, unless you're on Twitter, and then you've probably seen it, where you can tell TrendSpider to go out in the market and search for symbols that match a particular technical criteria and build a smart watch list for you that is comprised of those symbols. As part of this update is also a big update to the watch list. So, and I'll show you that in a second here. But basically, you can select the pre-made scan or build a new one using the same type of conditions, right? This is that same Bollinger Band Keltner Channel squeeze condition. The only thing extra here is it looks for the 15-minute volume to be above the 2-hour, 20-period volume moving average, to screen for symbols that have a lot of volume and are in a Keltner squeeze. Got other ones too, though. You can squeeze for TD sequential. This is one of my personal favorites. Maybe we'll play with that one. You can, of course, maximize this and make it bigger. And you can also define the universe that the scan takes place in. So like this is what we're looking for. This is the needle. Where's the haystack? And here you can define that haystack. So we can say, let's look in the S&P 500. That's our haystack. You can define the type of chart you're scanning on. Remember, Heikinashis and Raindrops don't have open and close prices. So if you want to use candles, leave it on generic open, high, low, close. And finally, there's a checkbox for current candle that that enables it to look at in-force candles, meaning the most recent candle may not have closed yet. It might still be open. That's really useful if you're scanning for like weekly patterns, like a weekly, inside day breakout, because the week isn't over yet, and you want to know the moment that breakout occurred. This lets you find symbols that are in the process of completing the pattern instead of fully completed it. So I'm going to leave that checked, even though the market's closed, so it's not going to matter. When I click scan here, you can see that the system will search the market for any chart that matches these conditions on this time frame. And it'll generate a watch list for me. I guess it's been found many. Let's try a different time frame. Try a 5-minute chart. But it'll search and it'll generate a watch list for me of symbols that match this criteria. And here it's starting to find one. It may have only found one here. When I click on it, I can then see the chart. And you can see the pattern here. And I might say the scan isn't finding enough, so I'm going to change this to allow for a wider price range and run the scan again and see what else it finds.
Now, what about the divergence you were talking about earlier with I believe we were on the SPY, if you were to look for something like that?
Yeah, you can definitely do that. I'm not sure if I have that template in here. Let me look. No, I don't. But you could do something like, you want 4 consecutive highs on price, and then you could have another condition where, let's see, 1 hour indicator.
If I could just tell you, Dan, you guys have done a really great job, and I can tell you've worked really hard on this. I've seen your videos from the start, and then seeing where you are now. It is amazing how fast you guys have gotten here.
Thank you. It's been 4 years, so it hasn't been that fast, but thank you. I appreciate that.
I mean, just over the year, though, in your videos, there's been such a change in the platform.
Yeah, no, it's moving very quickly. We're blessed with a really, really good development team. So we're going to look for 4 candles where the high of each candle is greater than the one before it, right? And then we're going to look for RSI that is less than the RSI 4 before it. I think that's Divergence. Maybe I got that backwards, right? But here you can generate conditions. You have to work in it, but you would mix and match them so that it would give you that result. Right. So, and then here's what's really cool about this. Like, yes, I want to proceed, right? Once you set up your scans, so you figured out what you want to search for, there might be a number of them that you've been playing around with. Once you figure out what scanners you want to play with and that you believe in and you think give you the best possible chances of success, right? You can then save them. So you can click the save button here, and you can close the market scanner. And this is where the enhanced watch list comes in, right? Notice that now there's this little like book icon up here. If you click on that and go to add remove widgets, you'll see that the watch list is now fully customizable. So you can now add multiple watch lists and alert panels to your charts, right? And you can see how this ends up looking here. You know, these are my alerts here, right? I've also got 3 separate watch lists up. I might want like this top one to be, I don't know, the Dow Jones 30, right? But I might want the rest of these to be different scanners. And you can see my scanners that I just created are all saved here, right? So I can now have multiple scanners running at one time in this panel here, right? And you can see this is that TD sequential scanner. This is some different scanner I was working on, and this is that Bollinger Band Keltner squeeze scanner. Now, here's where it gets really cool. Let's say that you've got a symbol that happens to appear in multiple lists. Let me switch to S&P 500 here, because that might be, oops. Sorry. Got it. So, you know, if you have a symbol that appears in multiple lists, let's say it's in one of your scanners and it's also in, you know, the S&P 500 or something, when you click on it, it'll select it in both lists. So you can see that your symbols are showing up in multiple scanners at once. Do you use a scanner right now?
For us, we have the hot list that we're using in TradeStation. We have Benzinga Pro running all the time with the squawk and the audible alerts and the new high, new low day. There, we also have Trade Ideas with the Volume Beast, Low Float Beast, different scanners over there as well. And so, I mean, there's an assortment of scanners, and to be honest with you, I really love the audible alerts because it helps me to keep my eyes on my charts. But this is a totally different situation as far as just research. Like this really changes my evening research. This makes it a lot easier for me to nail down what's happened in the day, what's happening tomorrow, and can really just take a lot of the stress out of my trading.
Yeah, I mean that's the idea, right? Like trading is very it's a lot of work. People don't really understand how difficult it is to, on a consistent basis, go out there and search the market, find charts that you can trade, analyze them, you know, figure out when you would want to trade them, if you want to trade them, you know, and then monitor them patiently, waiting for your opportunity to come. You know, I think one of the reasons so many traders, have you ever heard of the rule of 90?
The rule of 90.
So it goes something like 90% of new traders lose 90%.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah, and I believe it's actually more than that. The rule, yeah,
within 90 days, right?
Right.
Yeah, I just feel like people do that because they're, you know, impatient, right? They're watching charts all day. They're waiting for something to happen. They feel a need to trade, you know, to do something, right? And, you know, it's a lack of discipline and it's a lack of like applying a strategy. So like, you know, I feel like our gift to the trading world is to say, look, set your alerts and then forget about it. Like, go do something else. Stop staring at the charts. You know,
I just had a slow Friday blues myself, and I forced to trade and lost last week, and then you know, today I believe I did the same exact thing. Just it wasn't slow, but I forced to trade, and you know, this definitely changes that quite a bit. And another reason why I think that people are losing the 90% that we're talking about is that people are focused on the profit rather than just trading. If you just focus on trading and managing your risk and obeying your rules and you know, just continuously growing and focusing day after day. And I mean, I don't necessarily think chart time is a bad thing, but you know, if you can't control yourself, the psychology, the man in the mirror is always your worst enemy.
Well, and it's also, there's a lot of misconceptions in the new trader world. Like a lot of people misconstrue chart analysis with trading. Right, being able to analyze a chart and find you know, find some trend lines on it is not trading, right? You know, it's part of trading, right? And you know, I think that's one of the ways people get into trouble, right? It's like, you know, you miss the whole emotion, all part of it, right? It's very hard to like watch a chart and not do anything, you know, when you believe it's bullish, but it just hasn't triggered yet, you know.
And I also tell people, you know, that you know, paper trading and just being on the charts, that's one thing. But a lot of the times when you touch these stocks, they recoil. You know, they actually have a response for you getting in and out of these trades or attempting to get in and out of them. And that just doesn't appear when you know, in paper trading. And if you're just, you know what I'm saying?
Yep. I mean, everybody's trades affect the market. When you know, buy, somebody else sells. It changes the move, you know, the print of it. And paper trading totally doesn't recognize that at all, and neither does backtesting. Like, I love backtesting. I spend a ton of time backtesting. You know, I offer a backtesting product, and you know, it's one of our most popular features. Every month, 30,000 backtests are performed in this backtester, if not more. Right? That's numbers a few months old, right? It's incredibly popular, right? But like, even with this, like, I just always like to warn people, like, you know, you're not a computer. You're not going to get perfect entry times. The market's not going to be perfectly liquid, right? Your broker's not going to have shares for you to borrow. Like, there's going to be all kinds of stuff that like gets in the way of you being able to execute the same. So when you're backtesting for strategies, you're really looking for those exceptional ones that have room for error in them, right? The ones that catch big moves and do so consistently, right? Or to get you out of bad situations quickly, right? It's those strategies that are the ones that are most valuable, right? And like finding one of the charts that we generate in the backtester, it's actually, I forgot to highlight this, it's one of my favorite things, right? But this dotted line, this very faint dotted line along the bottom of this red area, that is straight up random trading, right? So when you run a backtest, if you can't beat that line, which is just randomly buying and selling along with you, you know, at random prices and holding for the same amount of time that you hold for, right? Then you really don't have anything at all. And like, you know, sometimes that will, you know, be difficult when you're building strategies in a backtesting tool. So, anyways, is there anything else that you want me to cover here? I feel like I've covered most of the platform.
One thing is, I like that you can, you know, adjust by the percentage change in your watch lists, and you can see what the top gainers are in each list. That's really helpful, and you can switch between the lists rather easily and have more than one list up at once. And you just showed us that we can even have more than 2 lists now.
You can have up to 6, I believe.
6. So that's really nice. You know, I just look forward to whatever changes and additions you have over there as far as how you filter those. Can you get back to your original order though? Because I did put mine in an order that I chose for a reason, and when I clicked percentage change, I was not sure how to get back to my original.
No, you can't, and that drives me nuts too. I'm trying to get them to fix that because I do the same thing. Like like I have to keep 2 copies of my watch list. One of them that I've sorted, and one of them that I have not sorted, right? Because of that exact reason. Like, I've got other symbols down here too that I don't want mixed in, and if I sort this, it'll get mixed up. Nothing's perfect, and that's definitely one of the flaws we have in this platform.
Right. I just like to have my chip stocks next to each other, you know, communication, comms, you know, just whatever it is. I like to have them sort of bunched together. So when I'm flipping through whatever my chosen stocks are in the SPY, that I can see them by it just logically for me where they are in that list.
Yeah, I hear you, man. We will get that fixed at some point. The other thing to just highlight, you will appreciate this, is when you have multiple watch lists open now, you can maximize them.
What do you mean by maximize? Okay, yeah. That's
so, yeah,
awesome.
I have 4 watch lists here. I can make one fill up the whole area for a while. And whichever one is highlighted, so you notice how one of these has like a little dark border to when I clicked on most recently. That's the watch list your arrow keys are tied to. So when I push up and down, that's the watch list that it'll iterate through symbols for.
And it appears we have a question. Would Fibs use VWAP as well as the Raindrop chart?
Would Fibs use VWAP as well as on the Raindrop chart? I believe so. I'm not sure I fully understand that question. Would Fibs use VWAP as well as on the Raindrop chart? You can definitely use Fibs and VWAP on the Raindrop chart, right? So you can use, and yeah, I got you. Fibs. So that depends on how your trend settings are. Fibs are affected by trend settings. So if you switch this to body, then the answer is yes. You can see how it's doing that right here. It's going from VWAP to VWAP. right? Because in the trend settings, I selected body to body as a drawing input. Trend settings really affect fibs and heat maps as well as trend lines, right? And then when I flip that out, you can see that it now goes from the high to the low, right? But yes, you can make it do it that way. Sorry, I didn't understand that at first. I think my brain was not computing it there.
And us over here, you know, for us, it's really awesome. I reached out to you and I had asked you if you were willing to recognize those that served, and without delay, you know, you immediately said absolutely, and you had given us a code to provide for anybody who has served or is serving currently. And also, you know, we have TS Salutes with our TradeStation platform, and they've also agreed to run a rebate for anybody who's not a veteran or not serving, and that's to get 20% up to $1,000 of your commissions. So anyways, but TradeStation also has agreed, and I find it amazing that so many people in the trading community are starting to recognize those that served and have served, you know, first responders as well. And thank you, Dan, that you know, you went above and beyond in doing that, and we really appreciate it.
I hope it was helpful. We put you know, a lot of work into this, and we hope everybody likes it, and, you know, happy to support, you know,
yeah,
as best we can.
Anything that we can do to help, I mean, we're willing to do anything we can. You guys are great. The platform is great, and I look forward to really getting into this scan. I've been, ever since I first saw you in the webinar with it, you know, I've been looking forward to get my hands on it. So I look
so proud about the scanner. It's been such a long time coming, and there's just, but, you know, it's not just the scanner, right? Like, along with it comes so many little tweaks and bug fixes and improvements throughout the platform as a whole, right? Like the watch list thing is a big deal, right? You know, and it's interesting because, like, this, like, star button, like, it adds whatever symbol you click it on to whatever watch list is selected. You know, it's just like little details throughout the system that I think make it feel more robust and you know, more useful. So before I end here, you know, maybe I can tell you a little bit about what's coming in the future, because it's also pretty cool.
Absolutely.
And then we'll call it a day here. So you know, we're our vision here, right? The whole kind of premise of TrendSpider is to automate as much of the grunt work of trading as we can. There's a lot of grunt work. Finding symbols, address that with scanning, right? Analyzing charts, address that with automated analysis. Monitoring charts, address that with alerts. You know, developing and testing strategies, address that with the strategy tester. One of the last things left after the scanners are out, and after there's two big features coming after that. One's watch list alerts, where you can put a multi-factor alert against the watch list, and the other is back testing a strategy against a watch list instead of symbol by symbol. Once those are done, the next thing we're building this year is broker integration, and along with that, the ability to automate trades. So you know, instead of just having TrendSpider monitor charts and alert you, you'll be able to set it up so it can place a trade for you by defining the rules up front. You know, here's when I buy, here's where I sell, here's you know, when I take profits, and here's when I stop out. You can define all this up front and push go, and the system will sit there and watch the charts for you as you go about your day with your predetermined rules in there. When the trade sets up or gets close to setting up, it sends you a push notification to your phone or a text message, and you can say yes or no. And if you say yes, it takes the trade for you, right, through your brokerage account. So, you know, and that'll be a wide range of brokers that we'll connect with. So the idea is you can then do your homework once in a while, right? Set up the trades and then let the market come to you instead of chasing the market constantly. And, you know, it'll work across all time periods. So you'll be able to scalp with it as much as swing trade with it. So hopefully that's exciting to everybody as it is for me. Like, that's the completion of our kind of vision here.
Absolutely. And I look forward to the video on basically, you know, how we can use these multi-factor alerts with, say, the 9 goes bullish over the 20, and then we want to take, you know, other considerations in as well on that, and we're auto trading. You know, that just seems super powerful.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be like the back tester, right? So you'll define your buy and sell conditions on both sides, but then you'll also have another panel for an order template, right? And you'll be able to say, you know, this is my strategy, back test it on this basket of symbols, right? It'll back test it for you, tell you the output, And then you'll have a button to basically play, right, to go live with that strategy against that same list of symbols. And the system will sit there and watch that watch list for you, like 1,000 eyeballs in the sky. That can watch up to, I believe we'll have a 400 symbol limit on this, right? So it can watch a pretty robust universe. That list can be something you create yourself, or a predefined universe, or a result of a scanner. Tee them up for you, right? But then it's also your decision to take the trade, right? It's not going to take it without you saying go. It's going to ping you with the chart, the setup, the template, give you your risk, give you all the math, and give you a button to press if you feel comfortable enough to take it. So we're pretty pumped about it. We think that can change the world for a lot of traders, because that's how the professionals trade. Like when you go to a prop firm here in Chicago, they've got more programmers than they do traders on staff. And it's because they're automating things and teeing things up instead of doing things by hand. And I think that's one of the reasons they can be disciplined, is they're not staring at 50 charts all day. I think it's a myth that great traders have to have 100 monitors. They don't. They just need to be able to focus and utilize tools to monitor things for them.
Yeah, I mean, this is so powerful, but the fact that it's so simple as well. I mean, it's not like you don't really have to do too much as far as learning what you're doing here. It's just taking your strategy and putting it into play easily.
So hopefully everyone liked that and found that interesting. Any questions or any requests? I can pull up some Raindrop charts for some other symbols, or we can call it a day.
Well, if you don't mind, real quick, how would you use the raindrops in a scan?
So I like to look for blue raindrops. So that's what I would do. And I believe I have a template for that already.
Could you scan for
30 templates this will come with.
Could you scan for the difference in the VWAP, if it's a greater distance, or down or up? Or
you can definitely scan for down or up. I'm not sure you can scan for difference.
I'm seeing like the candle. You have the VWAP on the left, and then the exit on the right. Yes. Could you scan for the difference between those lines?
Between the two VWAPs? No, you can't do differentials in the scanner right now.
Okay.
What you could do, for example, is say, I want to find every symbol where one of the, and this is the type of scan that I would do with these, where one of the last 3 raindrops was blue, call it on the daily chart. So that's 1 ago, that's 2 ago, and that's 3 ago. This is actually ignoring the current one, right? And then the current candle, call it on the 1 hour or something, price, close, has increased, meaning it's gone up, right? Now, try to find something like this, because blue dojis tend to form before there's volatility. Actually, I set this up wrong. I have to delete this bottom condition here, because these are an any of the below set, right? So, and this will go out and search for any symbol in the S&P 500 where one of the last 3 candles was a blue doji, right? And this is not an easy scan to find results for, because blue dojis are very rare. Maybe the Russell 1000 will have something for us.
Will there be continuous scanning in the future?
Yes, in time. Right now, you have to push the little refresh button here, right, for it to redo the scan. But in time, we will have continuous. Oh, I'm an idiot. This is one thing that drives me nuts about this. I'm sorry. I was scanning for a blue doji, but I forgot to switch it to a raindrop chart, and then I'm wondering why nothing's coming up. That was my bad, because I know that there's some symbols in the Russell 1000 where this has happened. So here we have that watch list, right? And we can then click on these and see where those blue dojis were and decide what we want to do.
That's awesome. I'm really excited to be able to get in and check these things out, and really appreciate your time too, Dan.
Definitely. Let's see. Joseph asked, Raindrop Interpretation would be interesting. Not sure what you mean by that. And then any plans to run smaller time frames than 10 minutes? So on raindrops, you can only do 10-minute time frames. On traditional candles, you can go lower. And the reason for that is each raindrop is actually built out of smaller candles. So a 10-minute raindrop is actually built out of 10 one-minute candles, right? You got to get the volume data from somewhere. So that if, you know, a raindrop is too small a time frame, there's nothing to build it out of. You can't actually form them. So I doubt they're going to get any smaller than 10 minutes. Okay.
I don't know about you, but I personally always trade with the 15-minute, the daily, 5-minute. But anyways, I've now switched my 15-minute or my 30-minute that I usually use, and I use that as my raindrops now, and that really helps to see.
Check out the 65-minute. That's a very interesting time frame.
I'll definitely check that out.
Because,
Thanks.
Because there's 6.5 hours in a trading day, right? And that gives you an even number of candles for the day. On an hourly candle, one of them is a half-hour candle. Right? If you think about it, it's a 6.5 hours. So you have 6 hourly candles and then one 30-minute candle. And different charting platforms do it differently. Some of them it's the first one that's the 30-minute candle, and some of them it's the last one. TrendSpider, it's the first, right? But if you do 65 minutes, then you get 6 even candles per day.
That seems really helpful with the anchored VWAP as well then.
Yep, I find it really helpful for everything. The only time frames I use when I trade is daily, 65-minute, and 15-minute, right? And the only reason I go down to 15-minute is to look for early divergences, right? So like, you know, if on the 15-minute, it's starting to diverge, and I have another reason from a higher time frame to think that price may, you know, start to struggle soon, you know, then those two things together might be interesting for me. But, you know, I always stay in the hour and up, or the 65-minute and up primarily. I never look at the 1 hour because of that reason. Like, I don't trust it.
And, you know, definitely don't want to beat you up about anything, but it would be nice if we could get it to where when you go down to one chart from, say, 3 or 4 or 2, that it can have a memory for what you previously had. Because the positioning of my charts, I like them to be different depending on how many charts I'm looking at.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's kind of an issue. One workaround, if I may suggest it, just maximize the chart you're working on.
Okay, yeah, I did just realize that you guys had that recently.
Yeah, so I mean, that's one workaround. That way you won't lose any of them. But that's one known issue that we will fix. I know there's no memory for these. If I change this and then go back to 1 and go back to 3, it's going to reset the whole thing.
Honestly, what you just said, though, that's perfect. That does the trick right there.
I mean, it works. It's not perfect, but it definitely works. So, okay. Well, I know we're a little over time, so thank you everybody for sticking around. I hope this was interesting and you guys found it, you know, useful, and I hope you decide to give it a shot. If you do, just keep in mind every account in this menu here on the right, there's a scheduled training option, and you can schedule a one-on-one training. They sometimes book out a little bit. But you can, you know, get a one-on-one training with one of our team members, help you understand the tool, learn how to use it, figure out where things are, you know, customize and set it up your way. And there's also an extensive user manual on the website. So, you know, we've got hundreds of videos and hundreds of articles that cover just about everything about it. And we're here to help. So,
thanks, Dan. We really appreciate it. And yeah, this is very helpful. And I can't wait to watch the video again.
All right. Have a good evening, guys. Take care.
You too. Take care.
Hi, I'm Sarah with Mighty Soldiers Trades. We really appreciate your support. If you like that video, please like and subscribe. Thanks.